As time moves forward, as technology changes and grows, as the infrastructure of companies continue to ebb and flow, one thing remains the same. A leader has to produce. This is the Mosley Method Mastering Leadership Podcast, a transformational leadership approach that's centered around three core concepts: vulnerability, transparency, and authenticity. On this show, you'll learn how to be open and honest with yourself and with others, while also developing trust, empathy, and respect within your team. You'll learn how to empower them to take ownership of their roles and responsibilities. This is the Mosley Method Mastering Leadership Podcast. And now your host, Edward E. Mosley Jr.
She's an expert in this field. And we're going to talk good leadership, bad leadership. You know, we talk all types of leadership here. So without further ado, Yvonne, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you. And then before you finish, tell us what leadership means to you. Let's just get right into it.
Yeah. Let's do that. So I am a book coach. And what that means is I help people write and publish books. These are nonfiction books, business authors, and they do indie publishing, so they're self-published. And I'm very focused on making sure that the books that I work on and the authors I work with, that they matter. And to your point about leadership, these are books that talk about leadership. I have an author coming out with a second version of her leadership book. But if you want to know what I think is leadership, here's what I think. I think a good leader is not only someone who listens, but I kind of do this with my authors. I tell them they have to bleed a little. And I think when you say that, that's the idea of being authentic and vulnerable. And so if you're writing a book and you bleed on the page because now you're actually telling me a story, a true story, and you're not holding back, I always make my authors do this because the reader, so in a leadership role it would be your employees perhaps, the reader is bleeding.
Yeah.
Every single day they're out there and they're bleeding just trying to make ends meet. And so if you're a good leader, you have to understand that. You have to remember that, hey, I remember when I was bleeding. And you can't think that you put yourself on a pedestal now because you have the title of CEO or executive this or executive that, or you have a corner office. That doesn't make a leader. That's just a part of a building. That corner office.
Yeah, I like that. How you said you have to listen and also bleed a little bit. I think that's very key because what that says is you're human. And you're not talking above hurt or pain. You're willing to acknowledge that you feel you've been through some things. I really like that.
Well, here's the thing. As you said, being human. This is so important. The whole concept of being human is getting left out of the equation.
Yeah.
Because these executives, whether they're male or female, they get promoted to these positions or they get brought in because they have certain background or they didn't interview well, and they now feel entitled. And you're not entitled, right? If you can be a servant leader, if you can understand that, oh gosh, you have a family to go home to, You have kids, you
Yeah.
have a significant other, and if you understand that your employees, the people you work with or who work for you have this also, then you can be the human being before you are this, what we think of as leader. But when you combine them, what do you get? You just get an authentic human being. You get a human being who may have some education or may have some experience that other people don't have. And so they've been promoted to a specific role in the company. And that's great. But if they can bring the humanity with them, if they can remember when they were down there on the floor or in the manufacturing part of the company or whatever. So when I work with authors, I help authors write books. And when they send me a chapter that is describing a specific thing that happened to them, and it's designed to help someone be inspired or learn something. This is education, inspired. That's why people write books. And it reads like, well, here's what happened, here's when it happened, here's who it happened to, and here's what we did next. I will say to them, well, that's a very nice report.
Yeah, I get
Nobody
it.
wants to read that report. I don't want to read that report. You don't want to read that report. You need to give me the details. I need to see some tears. There were tears in here that you didn't talk about. Maybe there was some laughter. Who was laughing and why? And when you talk about what happens next, why does it happen next? And the interesting thing is that people get hung up on not remembering how a specific thing happened or what the details were of what happened. And I just say to them, look, memory is a fluid thing. Memory is not something that is concrete and everyone remembers it the same way. So whenever you're talking about something or you're sharing or writing about it, write it the way you remember it. And don't worry about what someone else who happens to be in the story remembers. It won't matter.
Yeah. So you mentioned that some of the CEOs, some of the leaders they've forgotten that they were down there. Mm-hmm. What approach? I talked about this with another person. When it comes to that hierarchy, the vertical
right.
kind of communication vice that linear that across. What is your advice when it comes to helping that leader or the employee, your authors, communicate that well? How do you guide them to do that?
All right. So there are a lot of ways that this can happen. If you're the CEO, if you're the vice president, whatever it is, the executive title that you have, you need to go out in front of the employees and just talk to them. You need to listen to them. You need to keep that door open. They need to know that they come knock on that door because they have a question or they have something they want to discuss. And if they come knock on that door, you need to open your ears.
Yeah.
Really open your ears. Don't talk.
Yeah.
There's nothing more powerful, Ed, than making eye contact and letting someone finish what they were saying before you start to say. You can take little notes if you have to remind yourself of something you want to make a note of, but always be the person that understands the person who's over there working in the cubicle or on the shop floor. That person, guess what? Your company depends on that person. Because I don't care how big and important you are, without that person, that company doesn't operate.
Don't we lose sight of that?
Yeah. Because we think that we're in charge is the problem.
Yeah.
And we're not.
I remember when I was in the Marine Corps, and even some of the other organizations, we had our mission was troop welfare and mission accomplishment.
Mm.
But most organizations always put mission accomplishment first before troop welfare. So when I got out of the military, I worked at various organizations, and same concept. They want productivity. They want, to increase, marketing.
Online, yeah.
But then it's like you're not giving your employees incentives. You don't want to give them, flexible schedules. And then you wonder why they're not engaged.
Yeah. I had one of our authors from years back. She worked in the nonprofit industry.
Mm-hmm.
And one of her books, it was about employees and how the first defense that a company has is the employee. So if you run a shoe store, the person out there selling the shoes is the person who is the most important. And so if you support that person and make them feel important, make them feel that their job matters, they're going to sell more shoes.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, by conversely, if you think, here's the bottom line, we've got to sell 50,000 pairs of shoes this quarter, and all of the shoe stores have a quota, and if they don't make the quota, everybody gets in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't solve anything. It doesn't sell shoes.
What I think I hear you saying is the employee, the salesman, the first representation of that company is the most important. They're going to make the first impression, the most lasting impression.
Mm-hmm.
If they do not buy in or have complete trust in the organization,
right,
then they're not going to put forth great effort.
They're going to come in and do a half-hearted job.
Yeah.
But that's what you're paying them to do,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I used to tell people back in the early days when I was, my early career, I got started, I actually taught sales. And so I would tell people, the most important person in the company that you're trying to get yourself in front of one of the executives, because the decision maker. I got get in front of the decision maker. And I used to tell them that the most important person is the woman at that desk that's answering that phone, because she's going to decide whether you get that appointment to the decision maker or not. She's probably been there for a long time, and she knows. She doesn't have to go in and ask her boss whether or not this is somebody he should want to see. She knows. So you need to be nice to her. And I worked in a company where that was true. Unfortunately, they didn't carry that through to the rest of the employees, but the front desk person, she really ran the company.
Yeah. And so that brings up a great point. I talk to a lot of organizations when it comes to customer service. And to your point, and I always like to use this analogy, when we want to fly, I'm in Virginia, so if I want to go to California, get on an airplane, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to either use Expedia or some type of, travel service. But when I get to the airport, the first person I see may be that porter at the sidewalk there that's going to help me. If that airline's porter or assistant doesn't help me or say, hey, do you need help with your bags? They are representing that company.
Yep.
So from that point, you have already changed my perception. I don't even have to get to the flight attendant or the flight, at the ticket counter, or if I'm using the kiosk. If the lady or the man at the kiosk does not assist with helping me put the tags on the bags, you have changed the entire trajectory of my perception and thought process of your company.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's happened again and again, hasn't it?
Yeah. Every chain, even to the point of getting your bags a little bit late.
Yeah.
or they change the baggage claim that they change it. Now you got to go way over here.
Yeah.
It's little stuff like that that leaders and organizations don't pay attention to.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. So I worked years ago for a startup, and it was a company that was trying to be like Salesforce.com. Okay, it was trying to be a CRM, and the goal of the company was for the women, it was mostly women, who were going to input all the information the salesman gave them, and they were going to have this dashboard of all this content and whatnot. And I had to work in the new dashboard content that they created. And I asked the CEO, I went to him and I said, have you asked any of the women who have to input this information how easy or hard this is? And he said, no, they don't matter. The only people who matter are the salesmen. And I'm like, are the salesmen going to put the content into the program? No, we don't want to bother the salesmen with that. We're going to hire these underlings and they're going to do it. And I'm like, I think it's very difficult. I think it's a hard program. It's difficult to get. And I asked one of the salesmen also. I brought him over and I said, come on, we're supposed to be using this and learning how to use it. And he said, I'm never going to use that. The CEO just didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to talk to anybody that didn't agree with his point of view.
Is that startup still in existence?
No.
Yeah.
No, it didn't last.
Yeah. Why do you think he wasn't able to accept the change? Why do you think he just, that culture was that way?
He had a very high opinion of himself. And he had he came from a fairly well-to-do family. And so they had poured millions of dollars into this. And he just figured that he knew what he was doing, that this was the next big thing. And he didn't want to hear from anyone about what little glitches there might be, because it might have been a good thing. But I tried to tell him, I tried to make him understand the people who are going to use it are the people you should be talking to.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to sell it to the executive of sales or marketing at the companies, but you need to talk to the salespeople and the women who are going to be putting all the stuff in there. And he didn't want to hear that because he only wanted to deal with other executives at the level he was at.
That's very interesting. Talk a little bit more about that, about only wanting to deal with your peers.
That's right. That's right. So we have a lot of that, don't we? We see that. Yeah. My author, whose book is being re-released, The Leader You Don't Want to Be, she talks about it because she's had certain examples and stories also, just like the one I told, where the same kind of thing happened, where she was put in a position to be ignored. And it was partly because she was a woman. In some instances, that's true. But it was also because the higher ups, the more executive senior leadership team didn't want to deal with it. They wanted to go play golf, number one. Number two, they wanted results no matter how they had to get them. So if you had to make the employees stay late 3 nights in a row till 8 o'clock, that was too bad. We have to do that because this is the bottom line and we got to meet the bottom line. And you know, that's how too many companies used to work. Some still do, but I think we're seeing a refreshing change. Ed. I really do. I think that we're starting to see, number one, employees are taking charge. Employees are starting to see that they do matter, that they do have power, number one. Number two, I think there are a lot of people who are promoted to executive positions who got there because they were smart, because they were talented, but also because they know how to treat the employees right, because they were well thought of, because the employees like them, and because they want the company to succeed on the merits of being a company that cares about the people who work there.
Yeah. What do you see? And you started to go there, and I want to go there also with this change, this shift. Do you see the shift more so because of the employee or those leaders that are being promoted are younger, or are you seeing a shift in the current older leaders? They're changing their concept because they have to change.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Very interesting. I do think the younger people coming up are making a big difference, and they're not afraid. Back in my day,
Yes.
you used to get a job and you were afraid to leave your job and go somewhere else. I was not afraid, Ed. I had a number of jobs, but other people want you worked for 25 years in the same place, right?
True.
No,
Yep.
we don't do that anymore. Young people today, my understanding, sometimes they only last 6 months. Why?
At the most 3 years. 2 to 3 years is the most. If they don't feel valued, they're gone.
And that's interesting because when I was divorced and working and I had kids at home and I was a single mom, I had like a series of different jobs. And my son said to me after like the third time I had quit and started a new job, he said, "Mom, why can't you just stay in one job? Why do you keep leaving?" And I said, "You know what, son? I refuse to stay where I'm not valued. I refuse to stay where people don't appreciate me. And so I'm going to find a job." I never did. I had to become an entrepreneur. But I do think that there are some senior executives in the over 50 age group who are definitely seeing the writing on the wall and who they feel empowered to stand. No, it doesn't have to be this way. I've been towing the line for 20 years because that's the way I was taught. Yeah. But I'm not going to do it either. Why should I do it? And they're either staying and changing the culture or they're leaving.
You know, and that's what I've also seen is a lot of companies do not have succession plans.
Right.
And I don't know why. I think they're scared of identifying up and rising leaders because it could affect those that they didn't identify as an up and coming leader. So they're in this kind of hidden term of aspiring leaders. So they kind of, keep it hidden, but I'm not seeing a lot of succession planning in organizations these days.
Yeah, I don't know even if they ever had them.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think that's a new concept in the last maybe 30 years or so. And I think that if we're talking big corporations, of course, that's a whole other ballgame. Yeah. Because you have levels and levels of executives, and some of them are good and some of them aren't. But if you're talking about small business, it's almost vitally important for them to have a succession plan.
Yeah. The other thing that I've seen, and I'll ask if you would kind of talk about, is the difficulty of mid-level or even, whatever, mid-level or upper level to think and plan strategically. I see a lot of organizations struggling with tying mission and vision to a strategic plan. They will have multiple meetings and have strategic teams, but they don't know how to tie it together. What is your experience in that?
I have a client right now who wrote a book called the emergent approach to strategy, and that's exactly what he says.
Wow.
He says that what happens is they get together and they make these lists of things that are supposed to be their strategy plan, but we know that that's not true. You can't make a strategy plan out of a bunch of lists of things that have to happen or should happen. No, I think, in his words, most people don't know what strategy is.
Yeah.
So they get together and they have these meetings and they come up with a bunch of tactics and they call it a strategy. And it's not.
Isn't that crazy?
That's people. That's what they were taught. They didn't learn any better wherever it is they went to school or so. I mean, this is another whole thing is the whole education system is pouring out these students that are misinformed about the real world.
Yeah.
And so, until we can stop that part, maybe this is still going to happen, because the concept of strategy is probably been defined in 100 different ways, and there isn't any one set definition of what strategy is. So the marketing department has a strategy, and the manufacturing department has a strategy, and the executive team has a strategy, and that's all well and good, but do they work together? Because if they don't work together, what's going to happen with the company?
Yeah, that is, and I've seen that. I have seen where each department has their own individual plan, but they don't know how to tie it back together.
Yeah, exactly.
They do not communicate. They don't collaborate. And half of them, what I've seen, is don't know what the other department does or how they're.
And they don't ask.
They don't.
Because they don't want to know. Because if they know, and if they ask and they find out, it might mess up what they created.
But that's that culture, organizational change, because I need to know why my piece is important to you or how it affects you.
Yeah.
Because remember now, we're all part of the chain. We're all together, because if I mess up on that call, or I don't forward this customer or client the right way to the right department, because I think I know what they do, but I don't know what they do.
Right.
That is so impactful in a negative way.
Well, what's happening is we, the public, are the ones that are on the receiving end of that bad management style, that bad strategy. And sometimes we can complain till we're sore, our throat is sore, and nothing will change. But other times today, there are so many ways that an individual can make something happen. I'm very active online. I have a good social media following. When I write to a company and I say to them, I had a bad experience. Here's what happened. I'm not happy about it. And they write back and say, well, what can we do to fix it? We'd like to do this. We're going to give you a discount, whatever it is. And they go out of their way to fix it. I'm like online saying, look at this company and what they did. They were helping me out. Mm-hmm. If they say, well, that's too bad, there's nothing we can do about it. Well, I'm online. I'm going to talk about that too. Mm-hmm. And generally speaking, they don't want that to happen. Not today.
Yeah. And I gotta say, Yvonne, I think I noticed it more COVID and coming out of the pandemic. Even when it came to service, professionals. It was so obvious when if you set an appointment for 3:00, they're coming in at 3:10, 3:05. I even had a situation where somebody was coming out to do some work at my house, and 15 minutes prior, didn't see anybody. The time of the appointment, didn't see anybody. 10 minutes later, still didn't see the company. I called them to say, hey, I had a 3:00 appointment. just checking to see if you guys are still on the way or what something happened. They told me, oh yeah, we're about 20 minutes out. So I had to call them. They were still late. And so I told them, and I was very smart with them. I said, you know what? Don't worry about it. Just keep on going whatever direction you're going. Don't even stop here. Oh, we'll be there in a minute. No.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a problem with some kind of ethics.
Yeah.
The ethics in business today, because I was taught if you're not 10 minutes early, you're 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't mean I'm always there 10 minutes early, but I'm sure as heck there on time. I missed a call today, and I'm going to tell you, I overbooked myself, and I am just going to make this right no matter what I have to do, because that is the response. I'm sorry. I really messed up. This is totally my fault. How can I make it up to you? And people appreciate that, because when you come and tell them why, tell them that it take responsibility and apologize. I mean, I've read studies on this. Saying you're sorry sincerely is one of the most important things you can learn how to do, because we all mess up now and then, and we have to take responsibility for it, and then we have to apologize, and then we have to make it right.
Yeah. I think I like that. Because what you just described was being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Being authentic, and again, it goes back to the transparency and being vulnerable. Because people are more, what I have seen is employees or organizations or customers or clients, they are more prone to accept that what you just ask for forgiveness and that you want to make this right. And they will even return, over and over again, because they felt as though you were really authentic and true about what you did. And when you don't do that, you have folks going other direction, other places, Yeah,
I think that it's more than just saying I'm sorry. I'm sorry is very important. But after you say I'm sorry, you have to say, what can I do to make this right?
Yeah.
Because being sorry it's just a couple of words, right? And I'm big on words because I work in words. Words are very powerful, but you do not have the power of that apology if you don't have the action that comes after it. You have to take action.
Wow. So let's leave it there. But what I would ask you to do is just give the listening audience, give that aspiring leader or even that current leader, just a word of advice. Just what would you tell them? What would be the big takeaway today?
Yeah, so here's what I would say. Tomorrow morning when you get up, you're either brushing your teeth, you're combing your hair, shaving perhaps, you're looking in the mirror. You look at that person in the mirror and you say, who can I help today? Who can I go out of my way to do something nice for? And then you go out of your way and do something nice for that person.
I'm writing that down because that's awesome. And I think that goes back to serving.
Yep.
I think it goes back to that because, the more the more people that you can help and serve, I think it creates a residual impact in that person's life. Because I mean, how many times have you just spoke to somebody and you saw an instant change in their demeanor because nobody spoke to them or said hello to them?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, I was reading in a newsletter that I get about it's the end of the year. Now you're going to give your clients or employees gifts. And one of the things in the newsletter that just bowled me over, knocked me off my chair, it said, do not give them something with your logo on it. If it's a gift, it does not come with a logo. And if you think about the power of sending flowers or whatever that particular person or anything you can give them, and it isn't something with your logo because you're not marketing yourself, that's what a gift is.
Yeah.
So give your employees a gift, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a physical gift. Maybe it's a party that you pay for. Maybe it's something that specifically they have asked for, rather, a new coffee pot. I don't know what it is, but make it something that isn't created to market the company.
Yeah, I like that. I had a supervisor once. She created this. It was just it was basically a time off card, and it was something she personally created it. And I thought it was really neat because, it had no monetary value, but it was a personal little card that she made, and she reproduced them, but
right.
It was just a card say, hey, for your hard work, whatever, take some time off.
Yeah.
And I stuck it on my cubicle, and I just looked at that like that was personal. That
right.
was something that she created. And she was
acknowledging you as a human being.
Yeah. And again, most people, they're going to ask if you want time off or you want money.
Right.
And if you want money, then you're going to go on it. So it really has no value,
And that's not, you don't ask the question.
Yeah.
Okay? Because that's not a fair question. Everyone wants money. Everyone needs a little bit more in their bank. So you don't ask, do you want time off or money? You just give them time off.
Yeah.
That's, don't ask people questions that put them on the spot to make a decision when you're supposed to be doing something nice for them.
Right. Yeah. Well, Yvonne, I thank you for taking the time to come on the show and talk leadership and just talk about some of the things that you've seen in your experience, mm-hmm. and some of the good things and bad things that a lot of organizations are still struggling with,
Yeah, for sure.
And
thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited.
You've been listening to the Mosley Method Mastering Leadership Podcast. Edward E. Mosley Jr. has 30 years of leadership experience and is an ICF credentialed leadership coach. And it's his passion to inspire leaders who can foster a safe space where they can empower their followers to take ownership of their roles and responsibilities while sparking collaboration and creativity. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But until then, find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Edward E. Mosley Jr. To contact the show, send your emails to limitlessboundsteam@gmail.com. See you next time on the Mosley Method Mastering Leadership Podcast.